Good morning, good afternoon, and good day, everybody. David here. Now, the other day, I spent a full day recording a video about my predictions for Arc 3.0 and sort of a wish list of abilities and stuff that I want to come back. Of course, literally the moment I'm about to upload it, Bungie drop all the details for Arc 3.0 and completely make that video pointless. So today, instead, we're going to take the information that we've now got for Arc 3.0. Now I'm going to break down the class that I'm going to mainly play, the one I'm going to jump in with first, what I think is going to be the most powerful, and then a couple of build suggestions and a couple of weapon suggestions that I'm going to use and see if you guys gravitate towards them as well. So without further ado, let's just jump in. First things first, let's talk about a few important things to know about Arc 3.0. I'm not going to read all the details because loads of people have already covered this, but I just really want to get across the important bits that are going to affect my decision making when coming up with these builds and stuff. So first of all, the buff Amplified. An Amplified Guardian is faster with regards to movement speed and weapon handling. So any weapons that you have that are sort of sluggish, this will bypass that. It also gives you a longer slide and makes your sprint speed animation the fastest it can possibly go. This is also important to note for any exotics and stuff you may choose. Again, we will dive into this in more detail in a bit. It's also important to know that unlike other buffs, the Arc subclass gets this buff without the use of fragments or aspects, so you don't have to dive into the aspects and fragments even more to take advantage of this. But if you do, they will just mean there's several ways of getting the buff easier. And one final note about the Amplified buff is that you become amplified by rapidly defeating targets with any arc damage. So that could be a weapon or your abilities. So this is also important to know because it will decide sort of what abilities and what weapons I'm going to be using for these different builds. And then for the debuffs, you get Blind and Jolt. So in PvP, blinded opponents won't be able to see and will lose their HUD, and jolted opponents will periodically get damaged by chain lightning and it will spread to other nearby enemies. As of yet, we don't know how much damage this will do, but again, it's just important to remember this for when I break down my decision making when breaking down the build in more detail. So now, it's probably no surprise to most people out there, but I think the most powerful class is going to be the Titan, and it's going to be the class that I'm diving into first for a multitude of reasons. Now, the reason I currently love playing Titan and I gravitate towards the Behemoth and the Void Titan in particular is the ability to be able to aggressively push into like a group of enemies. If I'm in like a 1v3 or something in Trials, you can push in, you have means to protect yourselves with barricades, overshields and health regen, but you also have a means of just being super aggressive by like using your shield bash and stuff to close the gap and to make people volatile, or to use your ice walls and smash into them by sliding and so on. So with all this in mind, the Arc Titan is going to be able to do that, but to the next level. So that's the reason why I'm gravitating towards it. Now the first build is going to be an SMG build. Titans already gravitate towards the SMG playstyle a lot for reasons I've just said, but also obviously things like Peacekeepers really help. But Peacekeepers improve your movement speed with SMGs, and that actually adds a +5 to your mobility score. So with this current build I've got at the minute, I'm at 55 at base, but with Peacekeepers that will make it so I'm actually at 100. The overall stats may change slightly depending on what the fragments do and what they add and whatnot. So I'm basically going to prioritize keeping mobility around 5. If it drops to 4, I'll still be happy with that. Resilience as high as possible. Recovery at least 70. And then discipline and strength as high as possible as well. Normally around the 70 mark is what I try to aim for. And we'll dive into mods and stuff quickly. Usual sort of stuff, but Swift Charge and Kinetic Siphon, so that when we get double kills we become Charge of Light. Energy Fire to spend that Charge of Light to get a damage buff, and then we're using Radiant Light and Powerful Friends, which are arc specific charge with light mods to boost our stats. So there's a couple of SMGs and stuff that I'll suggest and that I'm going to use, but the multi-mac with a Model 8 scope and full range is, in my opinion, still the best option. But now you do want to spec a little more into stability. So this one I've got with Threat Detector and Iron Grip is fantastic. I've absolutely been loving this season. But also, something like this NOD is great. Now, here's the first sort of not so obvious thing. The perk Surrounded on an SMG. So this gives you a damage buff when you're surrounded by 3 enemies or more. The Surrounded spec on top of this not only increases the damage granted by Surrounded, so this boosts it up to 35% damage bonus, I believe. The damage bonus lingers for a brief time when no longer surrounded. So you can activate Surrounded on the other side of a wall and then quickly push around or flank to get somebody on their own and still have the damage buff up to like melt them and stuff. Again, in a sort of trials 3v3 environment, this comes up a lot. Now ideally, this on the NOD is pretty cool, pretty good, and I've enjoyed using it so far. But on a 900 RPM, it's going to be absolutely filthy. Now something like the escape velocity will be perfect for this, because it has the Model 8, and you can spec it to full range, so it basically acts exactly like the Multimac does. Also gets Threat Detector, but then you get the Surrounded perk as well. You can get this on Days of Eternity, but the chance of getting this roll is so tiny, it's going to be very difficult. So hopefully this will come back as a craftable thing. If not, something like the Callus Mini tool is great instead. So again, I would spec into full range, Threat Detector and Surrounded, and then you can have these as enhanced versions as well, which is even better. And then I would have max range for the Masterwork as well. This is craftable, so this is definitely more obtainable because of having the enhanced Surrounded. When you have Surrounded spec on top of that, actually boosts it up to a 47% damage bonus, which is absolutely insane. The only problem with this is it's solar, so it doesn't really gel with Arc 3.0 that much, and also the damage fall off is considerably shorter than the Multimac or the escape velocity because of its zoom value. The Multimac and the escape velocity can get up to 16 zoom, so that makes a massive difference in game. So now we've talked about the SMGs, let's talk about a special weapon. I'm going to go with a sudden death. This is the Dreaming City shotgun, and this is still obtainable and easily grindable using umbral engrams and focusing them. I've got, in my opinion, the perfect roll here with slide shot and 1-2 punch. 1-2 punch is great for shutting down supers, and this will synergize even more so with the arc subclass. So the idea again of this build is to just be aggressive, push in. If I'm in a 1v3 scenario, I've got my SMG with Surrounded or whatever, to just melt people. With a arc shotgun, I can shut down supers with 1-2 punch. I can do extra damage with my punches because of knockout, which we'll explain again in a second. But also, so the reason I want to use a arc special weapon is because of the spark of beacons. So when the player is amplified, arc special weapons create a blinding explosion. So that explosion will blind people, making it even easier to push in when there's like 3 people there and they won't be able to see you. Then getting melee kills and stuff will get us our health back and whatnot, or we'll be doing extra damage with knockout to just completely wipe like a group of people. So there's just, again, a lot of synergy here, being able to just push into big groups of people and stuff, and just make the most of just the synergies that this is going to have. On top of all that, we'll also run the Spark of Resistance, which states when surrounded by enemies, we have an increased damage resistance. So we'll be taking less damage from people as well, whilst blinding them and activating Surrounded on our SMG, or again being able to get double kills with the shotgun, reload the shotgun with slideways and stuff. There's just a crazy amount of synergy with this build so far. But there's also more to it. So we'll also use the Seismic Strike to close the gap more. And again, when we hit people with this, it will blind them. So then we can blind the person we hit, shotgun them, maybe slide, reload the shotgun, shotgun someone else. That would be a double kill, activating our amplified buff. And then we could run into another group of people and like shotgun them, and then they'll all be blinded, and then we might be able to swap to the SMG with surrounded spec and like melt them all. Like for sixes this is going to be great, but also for 3v3 environments I think there's just a lot of synergy here. So this is the SMG build anyway. Again, this one focuses on just being aggressive and pushing in and just getting multi kills and getting buffs from either being surrounded by enemies if we get the surrounded 900 RPM SMG that we're after, or even just a normal SMG 900 RPM like this multi-mac that can just laser people down anyway with the fastest time to kill in the game. So let's jump into build number 2. So the next build is a very similar sort of thing, but this probably benefits something like Trials a little more. So we're just going hand cannon shotty. Use any hand cannon you like, I just like this DFA. But with SWAT Peacekeepers out for Dune Marchers. So this gives us a increased sprint speed at base, but I doubt this will stack on top of the amplified speed boost, just because they've stated that the amplified speed boost is as fast as they can make their speed animation go. I doubt these will stack, but this just means that even when we're not amplified, we'll still have increased speed, which again is great for just closing the gap and just being aggressive. And then obviously sprinting builds up a static charge, and after meleeing someone, that will chain to other enemies. The amplified chain that you get from hitting people with Seismic Strike stack on top of this, so then you'll be able to blind a massive group of enemies by running in and hitting them with Seismic Strike and just chain damage to everyone. And then with knockout on top of that, you get increased melee range and damage and stuff, so you're just going to be able to melee everyone in sight and just completely wipe like 3 people instantly. Again, using the sudden death for 1-2 punch because of shutting down supers and stuff. And then on top of all that, we'll use the Touch of Thunder aspect, which improves your grenades in different ways. And I reckon the best two will either be a flashbang, so you can throw the flashbang before you go in to blind them, and then run in with Seismic Strike and just like blind them even more, like extend the duration of it and whatnot. Or even a Storm Nade will be great, because this now creates a roaming thundercloud that moves and tracks enemies, but only for the Titan aspect. So the idea of this would be to throw the grenade one side, the storm cloud will force them to rotate round because they don't want to be hit by it, and then you can Seismic Strike in the place you know they're going to move to then blind them all and spread the Dune Marches and whatnot damage to everyone. And maybe even the storm cloud catches up with them and then chains even more damage to everyone. Like, again, just an aggressive way to play that's just going to be really enjoyable and I think really powerful. So third and finally, it is a build based around the insurmountable School Fort. So arc melee kills grant health and instantly all of your melee energy back. Now I'm going to pair this with the Dire Promise because this has Swashbuckler, and this is also getting a buff. So they've stated here for season 18 that Dire Promise is going to get its zoom increased to 14. So that means its range and stuff is going to be even better. And then with my role of pretty much match range, opening shot and Swashbuckler, it's just going to be really filthy. We'll pair this with possibly the new Titan melee, the Thunderclap. So you can charge up a one-shot EVP melee, which sounds like fun, but we'd have to wait to get our hands on this to see how like viable it is and how long the charge is. But if not, even getting someone weak and hitting them with the Seismic Strike will also be good. So any of those melees will do us, but we'll also pair that with knockout. So again, knockout does give us health regen, but the main reason is because it makes us amplified, and whilst critically wounding an enemy or breaking their shield, increases our melee range and damage. So then we'll be able to basically have the same range as like Syntheseps, but with getting our melee back afterwards straight away to be able to proc knockout again on a second enemy. Because of knockout and stuff as well, again, using 1-2 punch, the 1-2 punch will increase our melee damage on top of knockout, so we'll just be able to shut down supers and bubble titans and stuff even more so. So that's all the builds done. So now I'll just break down a couple of weapon choices that I'm going to have, and a couple of weapons I suggest to you guys to try out if you've already got them, or to grind for whilst you're waiting for the new season to start. So again, Die Promise with Swashbuckler. This is getting a buff in the zoom department, so that's going to make it feel even better. A Wastelander is great because this can also get 1-2 punch, so then that will free up your second slot for a primary weapon, which I'll show you some suggestions in a second. Or even the Ragnhild D, which can also get 1-2 punch. It's an aggressive frame, so I do prefer the lightweight frames, but it is also craftable, so you can just craft this right now if you've got it. But the Wastelander, the speculation, these are going to become craftable at the start of next season, so you can also prioritize just getting the red borders for that now, so you can then craft it at the start of next season. For the secondary slot, again, I really love the sudden death. I rate this highly. It is an aggressive frame, so again, you could use something like the Without Remorse, which is a lightweight frame, and I've got enhanced 1-2 punch on this, which is awesome. I've really been loving this, but this is solar, so you don't get as much synergy with this. Outside of that, the Cantata is a great shout, just a very consistent 140 hand cannon, and it can get some good perks. Posterity is Arc, and the 180s have got a buff recently, but then being able to 3-tap and stuff with this is even more powerful. Unfortunately, Inertia Override and Frontal Assault are either not back, or in the case of Inertia Override, doesn't sound like it gives you the weapon damage buff anymore, so you won't be able to give yourself a weapon damage buff with this without someone else giving you Radiant or something else like that. Contingency Plan is very good. The Rapid Fire Scouts I think are very undervalued at the minute, and then this can get Kill Clip, which absolutely melts people, and again is Arc, so you get more synergy there. I also really love this Finite Impactor with Slideaways and Focus Fury. I've made another video about this in more detail if you're interested, but basically you can keep sliding, which keeps refilling the mag, but it doesn't refresh the whatever stacks of Focus Fury you've already done. So then you can give yourself a damage bonus just by hitting headshots. Awakened Vigil is also great, again because this can get Rangefinder and Kill Clip, and there's a 140 hand cannon. So this being a Dreaming City weapon is also very easy to grind because you can focus it. I definitely suggest this. A Rapid Fire Scout is also great. The Horror's Least is arguably the best one, but I didn't get a good roll, so I'm going to try this Darkest Before. But because mine has Wellspring as well, that will also feed into getting our abilities back and whatnot even more, which is great. And then the Plug one. Again, this is just Arc, so there'll just be a lot of synergy there. But you've got a roll like mine that's Depth, and you can just absolutely crank up the stability. This will be very, very consistent, and you'll get small bits of health back on final blows and stuff as well. So that will pretty much do it for the video, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, hopefully you've learnt something. These 3 builds are not the only builds you can do, but they're the 3 I'm going to try out first and most excited about. Particularly the SMG one. I really do hope they bring out a craftable 900 in the kinetic slot that has surrounded on it, because that would just be absolutely filthy. So fingers crossed for that one, but if not, there are other options. Anyway, hopefully you're excited about Arc 3.0. I definitely think it's going to be OP. I definitely think there's going to be big nerfs, especially for the Titan. But at the end of the day, we play video games for fun, and I definitely think this is going to be hilarious at times. So I shall catch you when Arc 3.0 comes out. I shall catch you in the Crucible. If you have enjoyed the video, a like and sub is very much appreciated, and all that other YouTube stuff. And until next time, my friends, take care, enjoy yourselves, and I shall catch you all soon. Bye.